the twist Jamie Dimon missed about the Bitcoin bubble. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Chase, was right in his comments earlier this week, but his target was wrong. He accused Bitcoin, the decentralized internet currency that empowers users to control their own money, as being worse than tulip bulbs and a Ponzi scheme like fraud that will eventually blow up. That is an accurate description, but not of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but of the debt-based financial model upon which his investment banking business is based. The tulip reference goes back to Holland in the 17th century, where the price of a single tulip bulb sold for more than 10 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman in February 1637, in a bubble of epic proportions of investor greed. It came crashing down, as bubbles do. Mr. Dimon, I feel, must have been speaking in code to us. On the surface, it sounded like he was vilifying Bitcoin, the people's money, internet money that doesn't require third-party vetting and validation from institutions like the bank that is his employer as CEO. What he was actually signaling to us, it seems, was the imminent death of the narrative and Ponzi paradigm behind his industry that is about to be eaten by new technology that turns everyone with a computer or smartphone into their own bank. His ridiculous comments confirmed that his industry is indeed in the anger stage, name-calling, of accepting the death of customer-dependent, centrally controlled banking. I'm sure he really meant his comments to describe the failing business model of his own metastasized cancerous industry. Here's why. Since 1913, the Federal Reserve Bank and the commercial banks like JP Chase that they represent has been built on a Ponzi scheme that makes Bernie Madoff look like he shoplifted a pack of baseball cards from Walgreens, and the 1637 tulip mania look like playground misunderstanding. The real bubble has been the 104-year-old money printing and financial policies of the Fed that have hoovered 98 of every 100 cents out of every dollar in our pockets over the course of a century. It has been a patient, hidden tax on each of us, transferring the value of our sweat and wealth to the 1% under the line item called inflation. Like the tulip frenzy that Mr. Dimon referenced, the underlying business model of the banking system has inflated a nickel loaf of bread or penny pound of potatoes of 1913 up a tulip bulb bursting 2,500% to the prices today. The banking fraud scheme relies on each of us feeling disempowered and dependent on a trusted central banking authority to handle the complexities of money. Here, let me hold that for you. The jig is up, however, for banking. As Mr. Dimon accurately says, it is fraud that will eventually blow up. In reality, it makes more sense for each of us to manage our own money and to be our own bank. After all, we know best about our own needs. Aside from the noisy death rattle of angry poison press statements like Dimon's, people actually find it easier and better to be responsible for and in control of their own money. Just makes sense. Just like Craigslist online replaced newspaper classified ads, and Uber and Lyft ate the taxi business, and email ate snail mail, putting the power of a 24/7, 365 bank in everyone's hands makes more sense than parking money for no reason, for no interest, in an institution that has limited business hours, high fees, 1950s credit card technology, and limits on withdrawals. It's a non-innovative, decrepit, crumbling relic that disempowered its customers and depositors. Enough. Cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin are a decentralized and empowering vehicle for us to save and move our money easily, privately, online, without the too-big-to-fail, outdated control infrastructure of big banking. I think we made an error in 2008, awarding nearly $1 trillion taxpayer dollars to U.S. banks like JP Chase to rescue the toxic, imprudent, greedy investment bets that turned bad. We inadvertently reinflated the Ponzi bubble that is our banking industry for another 10 years. We should have let the bank dominoes continue falling behind Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. Shame on us. Without that money, our money, big insolvent banks would have failed. Their leadership would face criminal charges, and we'd move on. In 2015, Iceland opted not to bail out banks and sent 26 bankers to jail instead. A few years later, they were back on their feet. After 100 years of abusive, greedy collusion and bubbling, when we listen, we can hear the slurping sound, like the final drops of a soda sucked up a straw. They are the last few cents of the dollar leaving our pockets, the final weak breath keeping the tulip bulb Ponzi scheme banking industry business model alive before it explodes like so much parade confetti covering Wall Street. Mr. Dimon, your statements were poignant, but unfortunately inaccurate. Bitcoin is the infrastructure of the people that will shield us from the falling debris of the failing Ponzi scheme of debt-based currency. Software is eating your industry. I invite those of us in the cryptocurrency world as a show of solidarity to take a moment and perhaps send or bring tulips to the local outlet of your big four too big to fail banks, JP Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup. We wish you well. Certainly no harm. We invite a serious reality check of your aging control-based narrative. Ironically, the basis of your exploitative business model resonates fully with tulip mania and is based on fraud that you correctly predicted will blow up. We choose to support Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. It makes sense to us to manage our own money, to be our own bank. Bitcoin is open, alive, and alert, resilient, healthy, and the Internet of Money. Hi, this is Mark. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like our video, to share it, because that's the way that Google improves our ranking so that others can find this video, and leave your comments and ideas below. We welcome that. Thanks.